Hi siblings, today let's talk about the human nose, the most complicated feature to draw in a human face. For me at least. I've made a nose video back in 2022, but my art style has changed quite a bit throughout my art journey, so consider today's video as an updated version. When you're googling nose anatomy, you can see that this is the frontal sinus, this is the nasal bone, ethmoid sinus, maxillary sinus. Who am I kidding? I don't understand any of this. If you want to learn all this biology stuff, just ask your teacher or a doctor. I think learning the external anatomy is enough for you to draw. I doubt anyone will draw the maxillary sinus in an illustration. I'm going to make a bold assumption that a lot of you will draw the noses in a face, which is why it's important to know where to place the nose. Full disclaimer though, what I'm about to show you is just a general guideline, a rule of thumb if you will. It's not a strict rule. We have our bold person, say hello to bold person. I am using ibispaint, and if you click here, you'd have the ruler so it's easier to draw the guidelines. The rule of thumb for nose width is one eye apart, and the length is by the end of the ears or slightly below, depending on the angle. However, I normally use the eyebrows as the guide because my art style is combined with anime, where the eyes are huge and the nose is almost non-existent. Not all anime are like that, of course, but a lot of them are. After that, I draw 3 diamond-looking shapes to indicate the bulb and the sides of the nose, and this is the guide I'm using to draw the actual nose. I never draw the nose bridge whenever I sketch. I'll talk more about it later in the video, but that's pretty much it for the guidelines. As I mentioned, it's just a rule of thumb. You can change it up depending on your art style or the character you're drawing. You can use the inner corner of the eyes as the guidelines or slightly further from the eyebrows. As long as you understand the general measurement, you can stylize it however you want. I will show you how I simplify the noses, because yes, you do need to simplify it because noses can get creepy the more detailed you draw it. So to avoid this monstrosity, I only draw the obvious thing. Let me explain. If you look at anime or manga, the artists usually only draw 2 things, the nostril and the nose bridge, and sometimes the shadows below the nostrils. And don't get me started on shoujo manga where it's usually just dot. When you look at a picture of a front view nose, the nostrils stand out the most because they tend to have the darkest shadow and you can see the shapes clearly. These are the only features I draw when I'm sketching. The other features like the nose bridge, the ball of the nose, I deal with them later during the painting stage. I used to draw the sides of the nose as well, but I've been skipping that lately because of laziness. In 3/4 view, sometimes you can see the nose bridge and sometimes you don't, depending on the lighting and angle. And the shapes of the nostrils will look different as well. That's why some manga artists draw noses like this. And this simplification is okay. You know, you don't have to feel like you oversimplify things or anything like that. Trust me, people know it's a nose. And at least it doesn't look creepy.
But fuck, this nose looks so flat.
Yeah, if you think drawing noses like this looks flat, but you don't want to paint it, you can also shade it like this. Just shade it gently. Take care not to draw harsh or thick lines when shading the nose bridge. The shadows below the nose can be darker though. Or you can also do it like in the mangas by drawing it like this and leave it like that. Now let's talk about how I simplify shapes of noses, starting with the nostrils. As you may notice, I draw nostrils like triangles because I prefer drawing lots of sharp things rather than curves. Nostrils are not completely round either. If you look closely, they're more like a comma, so I simplify the shape like this, but you can keep it curved if you like. By drawing in 3/4 or side view, you can see the shape of the nose bridge more clearly. Nose bridge is fascinating. They have a lot of different shapes and sizes. Lately, I've been into drawing noses with the bone protruding a little here. It just looks really attractive to me. Similar with nostrils, I also draw the whole nose with a lot of squares and triangles. Before we're moving on to the coloring and painting and stuff, we need to take note of the shadows around the nose. These shadows are mostly soft and delicate, but you still need them so your nose doesn't look flat. I found this picture on Pinterest. I chose this picture because it has clear shadows, especially on the nose. Anyway, these are the shadows I want you to pay attention to. First is around the nose bridge. As you can see right now, the shadow is pretty prominent because of the lighting, but I suggest to blend it in the painting. Yeah, Kinda like that. Next one is on the sides of the nose. A lot of artists like to draw the sides of the nose and make them stand out, and it looks great. But if yours doesn't look good, just use the shadow color to draw the sides. I normally don't use dark shadows for this, and just gently color the sides. Next shadow is this one. This triangle looking shadow. Sometimes it extends to the nose bridge. Now this is kind of a hit or miss. If you can pull it off, your nose drawing would look wow. But if not, your character might look like they're disgusted at something because they keep scrunching up their nose. Be very gentle with the shadow. You can experiment first with lighter colors. If it doesn't look good, just leave it out. It's not that worth it. Lately, I've been painting with grayscale. It really helps to see the values, so you'll understand lights and shadows better. The brush I'm using is pencil graphite. I feel like I have to mention this in every video. If you're using other apps like Procreate, Krita, CSP, Paint Tool, Sai, I recommend using a regular round brush. I'll show you how I paint front view nose first. I will do it in grayscale, but feel free to do it directly in colors. First, I sketch the nostrils first, and then I shade the darker shadow. I always use low opacity brush to paint, so the shadows doesn't look very harsh. By doing this, you will also get mid-tones without opening the color wheel. I also don't use much because the result is too smooth, but feel free to use it if you like. I draw the sides of the nose in this one because in the reference it has dark shadows in it, but normally I keep it in soft shadows. And finally, I add the highlights. I don't recommend using white or a very light gray because it might look unnatural. I highlight on the bulb of the nose bridge, sides, and under the nostrils. In 3/4 view, I also sketch the nostrils first. Take note how their shape changes because of the angle. As always, I start with the darker shadow first and paint the nose bridge. I always paint the nose bridge so that it doesn't look flat, as well as this triangle looking shadow, but I don't paint it as triangles though. In my humble opinion, 3/4 view is the most attractive angle. The shadows fall nicely onto the nose. I just love it. You don't have to paint the shadows around the nose bridge as dark as I do, because I know it might look unnatural and scary if you're not used to it, but give it a try. Try using lighter shadows. Don't forget to blend the bottom part so it doesn't look out of place. I always paint the highlights gradually if it doesn't look satisfying. I apply lighter gray on top of it. Painting side view is both tricky and simple. Let me explain. Because the shadows are not as complex as front view or 3/4 view, but it might not look 3D or having dimension, because the shadow is quite simple. So I will sketch the nose as per usual, and I normally only shade below the nose, the sides, and the nose bridge. To make it more 3D, I paint the shadow so it covers the middle of the nose bridge. Make sure to use different tones so the shading doesn't look flat. I normally shade the bottom of the nose darker than the rest. After you know how to draw the nose by its lonesome self, it is time to draw it in a face. I have Raiden Shogun here without a nose. Actually, I already painted her nose, but I forgot to press record, so here we are. I removed her nose temporarily. As usual, I will start by sketching her nostrils. Keep the shape as simple as possible. After that, I start shading right away. It's not too different from drawing only the nose, but you do have to pay attention to the other facial features, which are eyes and lips, because their shadows might affect the noses. The placement might shift depending on the angle. That's why you should always have a reference with you. Also, you need to consider how the nose would complement the whole face. Sometimes you work on the nose diligently, but when you zoom out, it looks out of place. At this stage, the measurements or guidelines we talked about a few minutes ago won't even matter that much. We just want the whole painting to look good. You may also notice that I don't draw the nostril on the right side, because if you zoom out, it doesn't even matter. You cannot even see it clearly. So why bother drawing it too detailed? Afterwards, we can fix the shape and placement using Liquify. I actually want to show you how I color this, but then I realized this video would be twice as long and I'm already sleep deprived as it is. So yeah, just wait for my future video about grayscale to color. Hopefully I can make one in the near future. Alright, good luck with your noses. Bye!